I'm Fredrik Gerten, and I'm the filmmaker.
And I'm Leilani Farha, and I'm the advocate.
And this is PUSHBACK Talks, and this is episode number 25. 25, and it's also PUSHBACK Talks year-end 2020 podcast. Leilani!
We made it.
We made it.
We made it through 2020.
Are we podcasters now? Or are we still just learning? I mean, when do you become, you are an advocate, I'm a filmmaker. Remember when I couldn't call myself a filmmaker after my first 2 films or so. It took like maybe 3 or 4 before I could really, I'm a filmmaker.
Right.
It's like it felt like a really big world. What is your identity? Identity takes time.
It does take some time, for sure. I don't know if I had the same thing with an advocate. I think it's only this year I started calling myself an advocate. No, it's not true. As for whether we are podcasters, maybe we're still growing.
We're still growing. So to people out there who knows things about podcasting, tell us how we can get better, because we are learning, and we don't. I mean, for example, we're trying to find out how we can get money to do this, because it's quite expensive to do a podcast, and we have no budget. We have 24 Patreons. That's
moving
close
up.
Friends.
Moving up.
It's like now past $150 a month that they are supporting us with. It doesn't really cover the cost, but it's a good start. So you can always go to patreon.com and look for PUSHBACK Talks, and then you can become a Patreon. So is that a part of the learning, that you have to be really commercial? Hey, friends out there, do you want us? What do you say, Leilani? Should we put the PUSHBACK Talks up to one of these platforms with ads on? Would you like to have that?
I wouldn't. I don't like listening to podcasts that have ads. And I was listening to one the other day where the broadcaster was doing the advertisements, so he's talking, and then suddenly he breaks into this advertisement and he's talking about, I don't know, some healthcare service. It was odd.
Couldn't you do that?
I didn't like it.
Couldn't you do that?
No. Only if we get to sing. If we can sing our advertisements.
Actually, I was once in a bar in Louisiana, where they had every Saturday they had a show, and it was like a real Cajun band.
Oh yeah.
And they had commercial breaks, and then they were talking this Pidgin French.
Oh my gosh.
Doing the commercial, the same band was doing it. It was like
that's
It
hilarious.
was kind of cool. The local ads. So, but they didn't sing it, but they were reading it in a nice way.
After singing, though, right?
Yeah, it's true. So that's maybe the challenge for 2021, to find a way to get at least pay for the cost, not your time and my time, but for the technical stuff and so on. But Leilani, 2020 has been a special year. You are less special because you left the UN Special Rapporteur. But so what are you dreaming about? What are your dreams for the new year, my dear?
Oh, wow. I didn't see that question coming. Dreams for the new year, besides money for the podcast. To be honest, I really would like things to just quiet down a little bit. Things have been very active with the shift. And I feel like after such a big, actually not just 2020, I've had big few years. And I need some time to just do a little more reflection. I'd like to do more reflection and a little more writing. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I never have time to do it. So
you mean you're leaving the podcast?
No, the podcast is part of an ability to reflect, isn't it? Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I got a little bit nervous.
No. I'm not going anywhere. That's the sad truth. I'm not going anywhere. But just if things could quiet down just a little bit, a little bit more time for some reflection. Walks in the woods. It's cold time of year coming up in Canada.
And this is to our listeners. Leilani is working a lot, and she's working too much. And you have a very small team, a very good team, but it's a very small team. And the task you're taking upon yourself, but also other people give to you, it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I do have I want to give a big shout out to my incredible team. I'm going to do that. Incredible team, all of them working crazy hours. Everyone's working too hard, but they're so committed. It's amazing. And we're on this amazing ride.
My dream? No, you didn't ask me. Okay.
No, let me think. Do I want to know your dream? Yeah, okay, tell me your dream.
My dream for 2021 is to, maybe I would like to rest, but I actually want to get back to work. You know, I call myself a filmmaker, but a filmmaker not making film. When do you stop being a filmmaker? That's like my stress, you know. I really want to get out again with a film crew and to find stories and tell stories and meet people. You know, that's my inspiration to be out and try to understand new stuff. And I mean, the way we are talking to each other is also, of course, a journey in some way. But it is really good to go out and meet people and watch countries and cities and to understand what's cooking on the planet.
I want you to do that too. That's actually how I really know you, is through that. You know, I've walked many cities with you and seen cities through your eyes and your observations. So I want you to get back to that too.
And you can survive that I will do that without filming you?
Yeah. 2 years was enough.
Okay, that's good. It's true. It's true. It was a lot. So, I mean, we really stole your time. So anyway, and we shouldn't talk about, but this was like the dreamy part of this podcast. I mean, the year and the year before when we released Push, it's been intense. We've been out there and we have so many, I mean, I've met so many wonderful people. You should know that it's sometimes a very cynical world, but there are so many great people out there. And the luxury of traveling with a film is that you meet a lot of cool people. And I mean, for me, it's really hopeful. I meet amazing people in Belgrade, or I meet them in Kuala Lumpur, or in San Francisco, or in El Salvador, or in Santiago de Chile, or, you know, in so many places. And they give energy back to me. And also hope, because I think, can we change the world or can we not change the world? Yes, I think we can change the world because there are so many great people out there. So there's hope.
Absolutely. It's been, I mean, when I think about, I was just thinking, sorry, I got lost as you were talking. I was thinking about all of the screenings of Push that I attended with you. And one of the things that you wouldn't know, Fredrik, is that for me, it was amazing to go to so many different theaters. So you do that. That's who you are. You've been doing that for years and years and years. And so, you know, you knew most of the theaters that we were going to. You'd been there before. But for me, it was all new. You know, the Castro in San Francisco, the amazing theater in Amsterdam. I mean, so there's the change that we're making and the amazing audiences and their reactions and various reactions to the film. Like some audiences would laugh, some audiences wouldn't laugh, some would be very technical and detailed after the film, some would be left with like huge, big inspiration. But for me, I also had this constant experience of a new physical space, a new theater, some beautiful, some very pedestrian. But still, that alone was an amazing experience for me.
Yeah. And the world premiere we had at the amazing Bremen Theater in Copenhagen, a very beautiful venue. And Saskia Sassen was there. And it was like, I don't know, 600 people or so. It was like beautiful.
Incredible. Yeah.
And that was like the kickoff for a lot. And you, I mean, we now, in retrospect, we call it the perfect storm. Mm-hmm. Because you were still you and rapporteur. You sent a letter to whom? Who did you send a letter to?
Yeah, I sent 7 letters. I'd sent them a few days before the opening of Push, and it was all timed quite perfectly. You'll recall, Fredrik, we were trying to scramble around and make sure it all worked perfectly. So I sent 7 letters one to Blackstone and then to 6 different governments who I felt were violating the right to housing by inviting in Blackstone and other private equity firms to dominate their housing landscape. So the 7 countries included Denmark, Sweden, Ireland, Spain, the US, and the Czech Republic. You had told me I actually didn't know this. You and your team told me that there was this burgeoning activism in Copenhagen against Blackstone buying up a huge number of units. I can't even remember how many, but it was a lot.
Yeah. And also we should also understand, that normally our kind of advocacy or making a film, it's kind of hard to break through. So you need good stories to tell and connect with that society. But we had in the festival at CPH Docs, which is one of the biggest docs festival in the world, Copenhagen Docs. They had an amazing publicist, press agent called Line Bielenberg, and she was really fighting to get you into all the big media, and you were in all the national news on TV, all the national news on radio, all the big newspapers, the right wing, the left wing, everywhere. And so this story about Push and you criticizing Blackstone for their behavior in Denmark became a major story.
That's right. She was amazing. Lena was amazing. I mean, she created a press conference for me to release the Blackstone letters, as they're now called, and Push had already premiered, and the activists had taken to the streets. And as you said, there was tons of media attention as a result. So you get this perfect alignment of things to make change. You've got in my opinion, an incredible film, and not because of the lead character. You've got decent advocacy, these Blackstone letters. You've got media attention, and most importantly, you've got a grassroots movement, homegrown, in Denmark. So what happened? What change did we help to make, do you think?
A lot, but I mean, the festival had also been able to reach out to every letterbox to people living in houses where
That's right.
Blackstone had purchased, So there was actually a lot of tenants coming to all the screenings. Some people came to all 5 screenings we had.
Amazing.
And the premiere was amazing, but the second screening was at another theater called Grand Theater. And they had organized a panel where, for example, the mayor of Malmö was there, but also a lot of important Danish politicians, including the then housing minister. And the housing minister, after the film, he was like maybe almost the first man out to talk. And he said, this might happen in London, this might happen in New York, but this is Copenhagen. This is different here. And he opened up, he was like a really cool guy. And then the audience, remember the audience?
Oh, yes,
they were standing up and shouting. They were so angry. So it was like, it shocked almost everyone because it became so intense.
Yeah.
Because he tried to, I've seen that trick being played in many places. They say, it's like there, it's London, but it's not here. They play the same trick in Sweden also, some people. But in Denmark, this was like 3 weeks before the election. Which meant this guy, he is no longer the housing minister.
Amazing.
He lost, and now the new government has implemented a new legislation through the parliament, and it's called informally Lex Blackstone.
It's amazing.
So actually, Leilani, your work in combination with the film and some amazing activism around there, and some, of course, brave politicians, created a legislation that is now protecting tenants. Of course, it could be sharper, it could be better, but there is something that is actually changing. Another thing that happened at this premiere is actually there was a lot of people in the room, and you don't really know exactly who's there. But we're going to play a clip, a little sound message from a friend called Martin Sundberg, who is the CEO of White Architecture, which is like one of the biggest architect firms in Sweden. They're also big in other Nordic countries, and I think they're also in the UK, maybe also even in Canada. But they are like a very interesting group of people. So listen to Martin, the CEO of White Architecture here in Malmö.
So, hi guys. When I first saw the movie Push at the Copenhagen Documentary Film Festival, I was really starstruck by Leilani's passion for her mission for the UN. And that, captured in a journalistic portrait by Fredrik, really moved me at that time. The city of Malmö signed up for the shift the day after that, and we were invited to talk about how architecture can deal with the issues of housing that Leilani's work is based on. And the signing ceremony was just very formal, and my feeling when the mayor Katrin said that these questions won't be solved in the city hall, but by all of you looking at the audience. My feeling was that maybe that's not just enough. Maybe nothing will happen. So we contacted Fredrik to sort of investigate how we as an architectural practice could join in. I think there might be a misunderstanding or self-inflicted belief that architecture is all about design and visual impact. And I mean, it's true that a beautiful building is also a sustainable building that will be loved and cared for in the future. But the branch must understand that we also have a strong voice when it comes to influence our clients, politicians, decision makers, and stakeholders, and that architects' really strongest superpower is to have an overview in the project. And sometimes it means that we must take the perspective of those not present in the process, like young people or people with less assets. I mean, they may not be invited or targeted in today's projects, but they are the ones who will live and work in our future cities. And we must really make their voices heard. So we have promoted Push and the shift on different arenas for colleagues, politicians, clients, and academia to emphasize the need for dialogue where we look from different perspectives and not just financial or time aspects. And I guess it's all very basic in all movements. You need someone who strongly believes that change is possible and will work tirelessly for that change to happen. And if you add a filmmaker to capture that passion and sort of present it, well, you have an impact on people like you did on me. You inspired me to do something, and I really thank you for that.
Martin Sundberg at White Architecture here in Malmö, Sweden. Leilani.
So interesting. I get asked all the time these days, what's my theory of change? And I find it such a hilarious question, like as if I'm sitting at my desk thinking, okay, I'm going to make change and I'm going to do A, B, C, D to make change. And it's like, I've got this theory and then I go and apply it. It's not quite like that. I love the way Martin summed it up. And I wouldn't have been able to articulate it necessarily. But this idea of, to make change, you need people who believe passionately that change can be made. And then you need those people to work tirelessly. And you need an amazing filmmaker who can capture that and bring that to audiences and people around the world to motivate other people to find that energy and work tirelessly for change. So I love what he said at the end there. I think it makes me feel better about my work too. It makes me think, okay, we're on to something here.
It's also kind of cool that an architecture firm spends time and money on inviting people to watch a documentary film, and they've been organizing many screenings and panels around the film around the country, and of course that's important because then I would say here in Sweden the film push is part of the reference in the debate about the housing situation. We haven't. I mean, Sweden is still behind Denmark and Germany when we talk about legislation, but But people like Martin had pushed the film into the center of the debate. Actually, I was, and the other day I was talking to something called Business Arena, which was like totally the real estate business own little 2 days conference with a lot of different panels. And I was the keynote talking about Push. And everybody had seen the film. So in that sense, it's interesting that they feel that they have to take this into consideration. And actually, I could send a very nice message to them because, like Martin, he was showing the film. But I got an email this week from a Danish founder of the biggest real estate capital fund in the Nordic countries. And his name is Rasmus Nørgaard. I don't know him. I've never met him. I don't know so much about his company, NREP. But he wanted to buy 300 codes of viewing codes of Push to send as a Christmas gift to all his employees, all the employees of that company in the Nordic countries.
Oh my God, I love that. What's the firm? NREP, but what do they do? They're like an asset management.
They are in all kind of real estate, from student housing to logistics to everything.
Oh,
I don't know.
God. And he bought 300 viewings of Push for his employees as a Christmas gift. I love that.
Then I had a little.
Now there's an idea.
I had a little talk with him yesterday, just to find out, because I was going to speak to his branch,
Right.
And he said regulations are good for business. Mm-hmm. To protect tenants is good. And he also said that the pension funds, who are now putting a lot of money into this market, they need to be sharper. Their asset managers need to be sharper to see the consequences of their investments. They can just not go for the growth. They also need to see what happens with people living in the houses. So this comes from a guy who is in this business, deeply in the business. So that's interesting. I think we're going to we should connect with him next year.
Absolutely. I think we should invite him on to PUSHBACK Talks. I would love to hear him say that publicly and get others who are in his industry or the financial sector to think along his lines, or at least open their minds to his way of thinking.
I think it's cool because this is not. These are not socialists or communists talking. This is like people in the business, but they see the effects when the business is too extreme. This kind of capitalism speed that Blackstone model is kind of representing. That is too much, even for people who love the market economy. They feel this is like too much. We need to be responsible, and that's also there's hope in that, isn't it?
I think so, personally. Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting because I get so many questions all the time about whether I'm trying to take down capitalism. And Fredrik, you've seen in the post-screening of Push, someone will always ask that question. Well, what do you think about capitalism? Do you really think capitalism is a system that can work for tenants? And so when I hear people like Rasmus saying, we can be regulated and we can have limits to what we do, it makes me feel better because I think we haven't given a fair chance. I don't think we've tried to make capitalism responsive to human rights. I think we need to try to make it responsive to human rights. And then if that fails, then maybe we should start looking elsewhere. But anyway, Rasmus seems to support my position.
A lot of people will call you naive, and that's what we get all the time. And I've met a lot of people from the left kind of criticizing the film, and I tell them, okay, so do you think the film would be better if we ended with red flags, marching people? Exactly. So then we can add some red flags for you. Come on, ridiculous. No, the film is all about pointing out this is a problem, this is something we need to talk about, something we need to understand. Solutions, yes, let's talk about solutions. And then one can say, down with the capitalism. But anyway, that's fine. It's freedom of speech. Leilani, we went to Toronto. That's kind of very close to your town. We opened up the Bloor, the amazing Bloor Cinema, and your mom was there, your sister was there, and your kids and husband. Everybody was there, and
all my friends
and your friends, and your face was in the front of the Now magazine, which is like the magazine that you read in all the bars in Toronto, and there's many bars in Toronto. So it's suddenly, and the headline on the magazine was "Housing is a Human Right." On this kind of magazine, you read to see what's going on in this week in this town.
Mm-hmm.
So the film kind of took also Canada with a storm.
It did. I just have to make a comment about the screening of Push in Toronto. It was so emotional for me. I don't know if I ever told you, Fredrik, but just before the film screened, I went down to the loo in this restaurant, and I took Julieta with me, and I was crying my eyes out, as you know I like to do. And I said to her, okay, I'm not going to the screening, and send everyone away. I don't want anyone to see the film. Anyway, she did what Julieta does best. She talked me through it. And she said, well, you're not going home, and you are going to go see the film, and so is everyone else. So let's go. Toronto was a really interesting, also, we might say, the perfect storm. Because Now Magazine, and again, I mean, WG, you guys hired some really great people to push the film, and not just the film, but the ideas in the film, which is so cool. So it's not just promo for the film, but promotion for the idea that housing is a human right and that we should be talking about it.
Get PR was our company we worked with.
Amazing.
Get PR,
they were amazing.
people.
And so you and I were all over various media, and that was pretty relentless, if I recall. But then at the same time, I had hooked up with an organization that I used to work for called CERA, the Center for Equality Rights in Accommodation, a big long name. In fact, Bruce Porter, who's also in Push, was the founder of CERA and the original executive director, and I took over after him. But in any event, CERA organized a whole bunch of community meetings for me, as well as meetings with City Council. And as a result of all those things, Push, Now Magazine, other media, and the local activism, because of course Toronto is under siege in terms of financialization. Airbnb is huge in Toronto. Rooming houses that you see in the film are being converted. The Frosty the Snowman fellow being converted into, swankier, more luxury places, etc. So,
and people are sleeping in the streets.
Yeah, remember? I mean, every doorway.
Numbers.
Yeah, every doorway. Horrible. So when I went to City Council, I mean, it's not just me. It's this confluence of things. The city started to take very seriously the right to housing. And since the film opened there, the city has adopted a 10-year housing strategy that incorporates human rights really at its foundation. They are in the midst right now of appointing what they're going to call a commissioner on housing, but that commissioner's role will be to ensure that the city is doing what it should be doing in terms of its human rights obligations in the area of housing. So really some huge strides. It's not to say that everything's perfect in Toronto. There's a lot of stuff going on right now with homeless people and encampments.
I see a lot of, I follow a lot of people on Twitter, and I see there's a lot of ongoing battles in the city of Toronto, and as in many other cities around the world. But also the cool thing is that many of them are now using your language. And housing is a human right.
That's right. And really incorporating it into their activism, which is super cool. And they have another huge threat, which is older buildings are being purchased a lot right now in the midst of this pandemic by real estate investment trusts, these REITs that push up the rents and drive people out. And evictions are going crazy in the city of Toronto as well as elsewhere in Canada, but certainly Toronto. So, but I think people are really harnessing the film, the language in the film, my language, the human rights language, to really push government officials to do more. So it's very
cool. So there is hope.
Yeah.
There is hope. And we have hope in London, our friend Hope.
We always have hope in London.
So 25 episodes of Pushback Talks. That's something we didn't really plan for. The pandemic forced us into this. I can see you on Zoom a lot, or we talk on WhatsApp. So we keep the contact quite tight. I mean, we are quite busy in just trying to understand what's going on around the planet. So do you think we should open up a new season of Pushback Talks?
Definitely.
Yeah?
There's still so much to talk about. And let's face it, we're not getting that vaccine for some time.
I mean, the year of the needle, the 2021, the year of the needle. Let's get the needle. Right. Let's get the vaccine. I want to be early. I don't know if...
I know me too, but I'm not in the first.
And and then you will get, the airlines will have a special app where you put in this kind of, I've got the vaccine. And then
so then you can travel freely.
Because it's kind of hard to do our job without traveling, even if we're trying.
It is hard.
I mean, for me, I would say it's almost impossible, and it's dangerous to have a small film company when you can't film. So we are desperate to get moving with new projects, which lands in this kind of the financial issues. So friends out there, to be a patron is to be a friend. And if you, as we have mighty enemies, we need many friends. And you can be that by going to patreon.com and go for Pushback Talks. And some people, they say, I want to support with $50 a month. Some say 10, some say $5 or $2. Doesn't matter. You just join us. And if you are in another situation where you are in part of a company or an NGO or something that you want to donate a bigger sum, you can go to Pushback Talks, to pushthefilm.com, and there is now a little button you can click, and then you can donate also money so we can keep doing this.
That's cool. I didn't know that. I didn't even know that. That's good.
And if you're in Sweden, you can also go in. You can swish. That's like the Swedish quick transfer of money. Swish, the sound of woof, money going away. So that's something you can do, because then we will be able to keep doing this. So I mean, we're partly doing this because we are a little bit. Everything has slowed down so much, so we have to do something, but the company is suffering. So it's also dangerous to keep doing this for a long time. So we need to find a way to pay for the stuff.
Absolutely. And for those listening in the month of December, it's a gift-giving season, isn't it? And Fredrik and I, let's face it, we love gifts.
Yes.
So give us gifts. If for no other reason, then we love gifts. You'll make us super happy.
Which means that if you don't want to send money, if you think money is ugly, you can also send bottles of wine or, Leilani is for Sauvignon Blanc.
That is not where I was going. I think we need hard, cold cash.
Oh, yes, but if you imagine if you're like, you have a wine cellar that is amazing. And you think, I have too many of these 82, then you can send a few bottles, and we will try.
So for those of you who care, I drink white, Sauvignon Blanc, particularly.
This wasn't
my favorite right now. New Zealand. It's called Left Field.
Okay.
Isn't that perfect? It's called Left Field, and I'm always in Left Field.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't really plan for this wine pledge, but you can in some way understand what's in my mind. It's like it would be nice to wind down.
Okay, that was so bad.
I know. But what can we do?
Wind.
Wind.
I'm going to use
Yeah.
that now. I'm
Yeah.
going to use it.
But first, we have to work a few weeks more. And for people who are new to the podcast, shop around. There's a lot of interesting stories out there, and information and knowledge. And with knowledge, that's our belief that we fight back better if we also know the monster. We understand the monster a bit better. And the monster is not only Blackstone. It's a whole system which is kind of in some way organized so there is no real people behind it. It's like a machine that has its own way of functioning, but it's destroying our cities, it's destroying lives, and it's also destroying the planet, because this is the same machine, the same monster that is making the climate go crazy, and we are consuming too much of our planet. But the same monster is also now have an extreme effect on the poor people. And I mean, the divide, the gap is bigger and bigger. And I mean, we're talking about income inequality, but the gap, I mean, this is a story we talked a lot about since the 2008 crisis. The gap became bigger, but now after the pandemic, the gap will be even bigger on this planet.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend in New York yesterday, and he's an urbanist, academic, and former architect, and very sensitive to cities. That's his life. And he said, well, he lives in Manhattan, and he said, walking the streets right now is all he sees is this growing inequality. That's all he can see before him. He says it's devastating. So I'm sure that's right around the world, not just in New York.
And I think this is the message also coming from the people we mentioned here, Rasmus, the investor, and Martin, the architect. That to live in an unjust society is not good for anyone. Even if you're good off, you don't really want to have starving people, watching you when you're eating. You want everybody to be able to eat and sleep in a real bed.
Yeah. One of the things I've been thinking about recently is, I think for some people, the monster, particularly when it's big finance, seems very remote from people. Like, how will I challenge the monster? But what isn't remote to people are governments. And I'm finding governments are defending the monster constantly. Even now, when there's heightened awareness thanks to PUSH and the work of many advocates around the world, there's still a defensiveness around the monster by governments, and people have access to governments. We all have access, whether it's our city councilor or whether it's at national level government. We are constituents, and so that's what I really want people to start doing is forcing governments not to defend the monster and asking governments to think through whether defending the monster is good for their constituents and their cities and their country. And
also demanding that pension funds invest in a way that is not destroying the planet and not destroying the lives of citizens. I think there is, I mean, and I think this is all something we can actually act on, and we can have success in it. I mean, I mentioned here before that one of the biggest banks in Sweden, Swedbank, actually divested from Blackstone. They had a lot of Blackstone shares.
That's amazing.
So, and this is because of the debate that PUSH has created. So, and I think this is the ethics of the finance industry is like a new battlefield that we also should all get more engaged in.
Definitely. That's 2021 for the shift. We will be engaging in a campaign around pension funds and their investments with respect to real estate.
Cool. That's good news.
That's
good news. Mm-hmm. So, Leilani, I asked you about your dream for the future, but what is your now? It's Christmas coming up, New Year's.
I love Christmas. I'm not religious, so I don't love Christmas in that way, but I love, I love lights, like colorful lights. The history of colorful lights comes from Victorian England, where everything was so dark and drab, and so they put up lights to make people feel happier. And it works for me. Canada's a dark country at this time of year, and Ottawa, where I live, is cold and dark. So, and I love fires, and I love watching really bad movies. I admit it, really bad movies at Christmas time.
So you will not watch
really bad movies.
Push. No.
No, I said really
bad
bad movies.
I got nervous. Anyway.
So for me, it's all cozy time for the next couple of weeks anyway.
I mean, I live by a market square, and there is a lot of lights in the trees, and there's a big Christmas tree, and it's fucking dark. But anyway, it's.
But the lights help, don't they?
Yes, but I see my friends on the southern hemisphere putting up pictures right now. It's like makes me.
I know
tough.
it's painful.
And I made it. I was actually doing a panel with Valparaiso, Chile, the other day.
Oh,
and
nice.
And to
one of the most beautiful places in the world, if our listeners haven't been there.
And to this amazing theater, Teatro Condel, where I've been several times with my films. And they're now playing Push again. It was up there for like 10 days playing when the pandemic hit and everything got closed. But they promised to put it up again
after the pandemic.
After the pandemic. But they now had it.
Okay, I'll meet you there.
So that's also a little shout out to our friends in Chile, to Alexandra Galvis, who is our distributor in Chile.
Yes.
And to the people at Teatro Condel and other friends, the bicycle activists of Santiago, who really they organize their own screening of Push, and with two friends in many countries around the world. We are happy to call you our friends. Leilani,
Fredrik,
enjoy your holidays, also the Christmas, and don't buy too many gifts because it's stupid and consumerism. But buy some nice wine because that's good for your mental health. Your soul. Yeah.
You too.
Yeah.
You too.
And stay well. And let's decide when we start up next year. I have no idea. But normally our plans are made like 2 days ahead, so we will see. But just wait for us. We will be back. 2021, the year of the needle, and support us. Ciao, Leilani.
Bye, Fredrik.
Take care. Bye.
PUSHBACK Talks is produced by WG Film. To watch Push, visit pushthefilm.com. You can also support us by becoming a Patreon at patreon.com/pushbacktalks. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.